Welcome to the Unboxable podcast, because there has never been a better time to step into your big girl shoes and realize that you are made for more. More joy, more alignment with your life purpose, and more connection. I'm Alena Turley, and I'm inviting you to join me in exploring how we can connect within ourselves and with those in our circles more deeply so we can make big change while still showing up as the best mothers, women, and humans possible. Let's begin. Hi, Nadia. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
So, the first thing I like to ask everybody that comes on this podcast is, who are you, where are you, and what do you love to do?
I'm Nadia. I live in Manly in Sydney, Australia, and I'm a mother of two. I'm a nutritionist, and I'm a yoga practitioner and teacher and nature lover. And my work sort of combines all of those things. I predominantly work with women on their nutrition, but also helping them with their lifestyle and making sure that that all synchronized into allow them to feel incredible as they approach midlife, as they come into peri-menopause, as they may have begun to feel a loss of their sense of self. I try and help bring them back to themselves or a new form of themselves so that they feel alive again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that's what I love to do.
I feel like women are such shape shifters. There's so many things I could pull out of what you just said to pursue in a conversation. We have a lot. I feel like we're kindred spirits. We have a lot in common. So the first thing I wanted to ask you really is, what led you to be in this work?
I started in the yoga sort of when I would have been about 25. And I had been practicing for some time. I felt really unfulfilled in my corporate work. I didn't see an out, but I began to really just throw myself into my yoga just as a way of feeling more fulfilled so that I didn't feel that my work had become my life. And then it just sort of led into working with one of my teachers at the time. I was sort of mentored by him. And then at some point, he went on a big overseas trip and told me I could take over his classes, which I did. And then it all kind of grew from there. I began teaching. It opened up a whole lot of, I guess it just made me think about health in a more holistic way.
Yeah.
I won't get into it, but many years later, I was hit by a car and had to sort of look at my health once again and how food could be used as a part of my healing journey and as an aid to my body. Then again, once I had my second child, I was suffering with a whole lot of symptoms, not immediately, but a couple of years on. And I had really just pointed the blame onto having that second child as a reason for feeling that way, for, piling on a lot of weight, feeling generally sluggish, flat, my brain not really firing properly. And then I began to look at my nutrition. And once I tweaked my nutrition, I felt so incredible. And it seemed like it happened overnight. I suddenly found this huge burst of energy. I slept better. The weight, well, it wasn't really quick. I did drop 12 kilos. So it was a significant amount of weight, but it was the weight that I'd been holding. It was hormonal weight. My menstrual cycle went back to normal. My stress levels, everything just felt better. And I felt and still feel amazing. I feel better than I did in my late 30s, and I'm in my mid 40s. I have as much, if not more, energy than I had in my early 30s and late 20s. I feel so good. And now what I do is I help women, I guess, find that spark. I work with them through their nutrition to help them along that journey as well.
I want to take a pause to share with you the incredible work that the women in the Soul Mama community are doing at the moment to step into big change, into their version of success, healing the obstacles that stop us, helping silence the negative self-talk, the self-doubt that gets in the way of us, bringing into the world our biggest visions for ourselves, our families, and our communities. It's a supportive space. You can join a free community and gain a host of resources. It's a really exciting place to be, and you will feel the gentle accountability of the community. At www.alenaturley.com, that is Alenaturley. I can't wait to see you in there, people. I think it's a really powerful thing you're doing. I know for me, I had a child at 41 and another at 45. I'd had one at 31 as well. But the child that I had at 45 followed a 30-day whole food diet, which had no alcohol, no sugar, no grain or processed grain of any kind. In fact, no processed food, like no
Mm.
sauces, no, it was just whole food only. It was a detox and a whole food diet, really. And it was so powerful. And I relate to everything you're saying. And I think if you have a way of making whole food easier for women, you are giving them such a gift that
Yeah.
can't be measured in a way, which is you're giving them back themselves. And I think that's where our work kind of crosses over, because I also am really keen on bringing women home to themselves, and I think when we do that, as you say, it unlocks so much. It gives us so much joy, so much peace, so much rest, so much energy. It's a very powerful thing. And I'm really curious to ask you, at what point exactly did you decide that this was your work? I mean, plenty of us find things that heal us, but when did it become, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my mission.
I think I'd always had an interest in nutrition, but I always have generally felt pretty well. So
Yeah,
I didn't,
untested in a way.
untested. Yeah. It was when I had gone from feeling quite unwell to having a very sudden turnaround to feeling not just well, but amazing,
Mm.
that I realized that that was what I wanted to help with. That's what I always wanted to be in a job where I can help people, women specifically. I just love working with women. I feel so lucky to work with the women that I do work with, and I'm just so inspired by them. But it was that real shift from feeling unwell, from feeling low, from feeling flat, to having turned that all around and suddenly feeling better than ever, that made me want to help women experience that same thing. Because
Mm.
the more and more I spoke to women of the same age group, and I had my second child I was almost 41, and my first I was almost 36.
Yeah,
And and I was a lot more tired after that second one. It was
I
so
relate to
different.
that.
And the more I spoke to women in that age group, the more I just found they were experiencing that same thing. No matter what age their kids were, they were still
Mm.
feeling tired. They were flat. They didn't feel like themselves. They often just held on to a lot of hormonal weight that was almost weighing them down emotionally and mentally as well. It wasn't so
Mm.
much the appearance side of things as just feeling good inside and out and not
Mm.
carrying more than you need to carry.
And I know we're not supposed to buy into the social norms of what a body's meant to look like, but the reality is if you are not in that particular social norm at the time, whatever the body shape is that you desire to have, it is confronting, like
Mm,
if you feel unattractive, even if you objectively are very attractive, that's really hard on your mental health. And
absolutely.
especially if you've changed, if your body
That's
has
it.
changed. And I think that's the thing that we are not kind of equipped to handle often as
Yeah.
women. We don't talk about it enough. And like I'm here to say I'm in menopause. My body has changed. I had this sort of Audrey Hepburn waif sort of body, and I now have curves. I mean, other people might not see curves, but for me, I see curves. I have a
Yeah.
shape. I have a shape now. And it's taken me a while to really love that and to dress
Right.
for it, to change my wardrobe, to embrace it. And also there's a limit to it. Like when it gets really curvy and I don't feel good in my body because I'm feeling low in energy, or I know it's not a healthy weight. And I don't really follow weight as a measure of how good you feel. I don't think they are the same thing.
No,
But for me, like there is certainly a weight or a shape that is beyond my kind of optimal. And I can tell when I'm hitting that and it doesn't feel good,
no,
and
it
then I
doesn't feel
start to
good.
modify. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you
And
said, it's the change. It's the change from what
right.
you always had then, which obviously we're not going to be the same as what we were when we were 20, but if
It
our
will
body takes a
change.
completely different shape and the things
Mm,
that we've done to keep ourselves feeling good don't work anymore,
mm,
that is when we start to feel like it doesn't feel good, A, but also you feel helpless. You feel like there's nothing you can
mm,
do. And it's one thing to obviously embrace the natural shape change that women will have as they get older,
mm.
but to be carrying that weight that weighs you down can be quite
Yes,
heavy. And I find on an energetic level, it's heavy.
it's
And
heavy.
a lot of the women that I work with find that a lot of them will come in saying they want to lose weight. That'll be one of the things that they want to address.
Mm,
And along the journey, everything else will start to feel good. And they're not even really looking at the weight, but I find that they end up saying, I think I've lost weight. I'm sleeping better. I've got more energy. I feel great. Look at my skin. I feel more alive. My brain fog's gone.
mm.
And I think I've lost weight. And it stops
Yes,
being so much the focus because you just feel lighter. You just feel
yes. And the weight just becomes
lighter.
a symptom of the transformation. It's like just a
That's it.
symptom of other choices or a follow-on effect or a sort of, cause and effect thing. It doesn't become the central feature. I think that's true. Certainly that's true for me. Like when I got my black belt age 50, which I talk about often because that was a really big deal to train that hard and to be like a kind of like a high performance athlete with 3 kids working, like it was crazy. And
That's amazing.
it's amazing, and it was amazing, and it was really hard, but it was also really incredible, and it didn't necessarily change my shape to a thinner or more svelte shape. In fact, quite the opposite happened. My
Mhm.
shoulders broadened because I was doing a lot of upper body strength training, because I was throwing big men and doing push-ups and, so my belly didn't really disappear, but it got firm, like my
Yeah.
menopausal belly.
Yeah.
And it definitely flattened out a little, but I've kind of realized my belly will never be flat like it was when I was in my 20s and 30s. I was a person that kept a very flat belly till quite late. So when it
Mm.
changed, it was really confronting. And it's that thing of like, how do I not make that about who I am or how attractive I am? That sort of
Mm.
mindset stuff that you talk about and that ability to become self-accepting, I think is the great gift of menopause. Certainly
Yes.
post 50, like I found 50 was a big turning point for me. But, it's different for everybody when that happens, I think, if it happens. But like I did a lot of work and still am
Yeah.
doing a lot of work on
Yeah.
being very self-accepting and compassionate and celebrating those differences, which our culture doesn't really do very well.
No, and one of the things that I say when I run workshops regularly, and one of the things I say, because women often come in when they're approaching menopause, going through menopause,
Yeah.
and they come in scared. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we're celebrating. This is empowering.
Yes.
You've made it to this point in your life. Like that, everybody is going to go through this. And the
Mm,
only way that you're not going through this, unfortunately, is if you don't make it to this age. So that's
mm,
amazing. Let's celebrate. Let's feel empowered by this, not disempowered. And
mm.
what you're saying about the body composition and being strong is so important in this age because we want
Yes.
to feel strong. We are
Yes.
strong. We're accomplished women. We've been through
Yes.
so much and internally we are strong. And when you feel that physical strength as well, it's just such a beautiful combination and so empowering.
And I agree with that. And I also notice that as much as I agree with that intellectually and conceptually, and I live that in my life, now that I have grey hair, and
Mm.
not very, but it's there, I've just noticed how much recently. Now that I have grey hair and my muffin top and my, all of my signs of aging, like fine lines around my eyes, I do get treated differently at work by young people sometimes. I do
Mm.
become invisible as a sexual being. I do, all of those things. And it's fascinating. Like I'll tell you a little story recently. I went out to say goodbye to my son who left home, went overseas. And I went out with some of his friends, some of his work friends and him to say farewell. And we ended up at a pub, local pub in Manly. And I ended up sitting next to one of the work friends' boyfriends. And he did not know how to be around me.
Wow.
He didn't know. He was lovely. He was also very funny and lovely. He bought me a drink. We were bantering. But at one point he called me a MILF and my son like just was shrinking into the and like he didn't know how to handle the fact that I can still be like a presence as a woman sitting next to him, but I'm also in my 50s. That was confronting for him. You
Yeah,
could
it's
see he didn't know what to say. Like MILF was definitely too far, but
people
it
don't
was
know
like,
where to put you. They don't
they
know how
don't
to
know where to
categorize
put
you.
you.
It is an invisible. It is an age where you feel invisible to the people around you because people don't know.
Right.
They don't know where you fit in,
But
and you
you're a
don't look at
very
your age.
attractive woman. You're in your 40s, highly attractive. Like it's a very interesting thing to be someone who owns their sexuality in midlife. I mean, this is
Yeah,
a thing. Like, this is a thing that I'm noticing that my podcast is called Unboxable. There's a reason for that. Like, we don't have to fit into those boxes, and
no.
nor should we ever, but be prepared for people to be a little put out, to be a little confused, you
And
know.
that's why we want to be empowered because it doesn't really
Right.
matter. It's not
Right.
important.
It's about you and how
You feel,
you
if you feel
feel.
amazing, then who
Right.
cares? It
Exactly.
just, yeah, it's, and we're not looking at our body composition and the way that we look to
Mm.
be under the male gaze anymore. It just, you've had your kids, grown out of that phase. You just want to feel good. You want to feel
And you
good
do,
inside and
and you
out, and you
do.
do.
And
And so,
it's no small thing to do that,
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that idea in itself is probably, I'm not a man, I can't say, but it's probably quite confronting
I think
that
so.
we're not under that power
Look,
anymore, that we have our
power
own
power
power,
in,
internal power.
power within,
Yeah.
as opposed to power over. I'm not talking about
Yes.
being powerful over another person.
No, no, no.
About
I'm talking about
power
our own
in
internal
me,
power.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm very good at cultivating. I'm a martial artist. That's what we do. You know, it is something that can be confronting to many people. It can be confronting because you don't need them to validate you. And
Mm.
that can be confronting. It can be confronting because you're not scared
Yeah.
of things. And that can be confronting as well when that's unusual, you're not intimidated or
Yeah.
that sort of thing in situations that otherwise would be. And the other part of it, I think also is that if a person is feeling a little bit less than empowered, then seeing someone who is a tough mirror. It's a tough thing to see. And that can happen with other women, with other men, with anyone.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
be prepared, I think, if you're going to make some big changes in your life and you're going to step into your power, your gentle power. I
Yeah.
really believe that. It's a gentle power. Then people will, it will ruffle some feathers. And I think you got to learn a kind of compassion with that, because and it's not, you don't make excuses or make allowances for people necessarily, but I think you got to give people space to adjust if you're changing and shifting.
Yeah. And also I think it's potentially a generational thing that, that women in midlife nowadays are sort of more exhibiting that power.
And
And
freedom.
people, but that is perhaps, I don't know, it wasn't around before, but maybe
Mm.
women didn't do that before.
Mm.
Maybe they didn't, that wasn't out there. So this is quite a new space and people don't know
I
how to
agree.
be
Because there
around it.
weren't that
And it
many
is
women living
confronting.
this long. I mean, we've got more than
Oh,
ever, we've got more
they're
women than
just at
ever
home.
living longer. And men,
Just,
but we're going to talk about women because that's who we work with. But
yeah.
yeah, I did speak to Ali Dado, who wrote a book called Queen Menopause,
Mm-hmm.
and she talks beautifully about this too. And there are so many more advocates now and people, having these conversations and really stepping into this kind of let's claim this space and let's
Yeah.
make it how we want it to be.
And celebrate it.
Yeah, and it's no small
Yeah.
thing. Do you have a
Yeah.
cultural background of any sort of awareness of aging or peri-menopause or menopause? Like, was your mother or father or anyone able to give you any insights? No.
No, not discussed.
What about love of food? Is that a cultural?
My dad is Moroccan. I'm one of 4 kids. I would say, whilst we all love food, it was my mum who predominantly did the cooking, and she was also working and a very busy woman. So,
Yeah.
whilst she probably does love food, it was more of a necessity growing up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have necessarily called myself so much of a foodie previously, although I did love food. It was more just clean food
Mm.
and a love of overall health. But it didn't really come to me from my family, I would say. That's just something that I've explored on my own. Yeah.
So
I do remember my dad cooking, like when he would cook Moroccan meals, which didn't happen very often, but he would do it a few times a year. He would spend a whole weekend preparing. you'd know I was going to cook because he'd have all these bowls of things soaking in the kitchen for a day or
Yeah.
two before, and he'd come in and rinse them. And I remember him rinsing them and like massaging the couscous and
Yeah.
and that was an event. And they were
Yeah.
very much whole food meals, they're made from
Yeah.
scratch and just delicious, delicious meals. But I don't have time for that. I
No.
want to eat delicious, healthy food, but I want it to be simple. It needs to be easy. It needs to be achievable, or it's just not going to happen.
Mm.
So, whilst there was definitely an appreciation of that growing up, it's
Mm.
not so much had an influence on what I'm doing now.
And have you got any go-to recipe sites or recipe books or easy maybe you could give us a link to an easy recipe we can put in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. I can
I'll
write
make
up a
that
recipe.
request for our listeners. But
Yeah,
but where do
happy
you
to.
what's your go-to? Like, do you make your own? Where do you go?
Bit of both. So I've converted a bunch of recipes that I used to make, and I've just
That's
sort of
cool.
played around with it to see how I can do it myself in the simplest way. I have spent a lot of time on Google. Sometimes I'll find a recipe on Google that I just like the look of. And again, I just start to adapt it. I play around with some of the elements. And a lot of the time, it's just a lot more simple than that. It's just
Mm.
find my protein, put some lemon juice and olive
Yes.
oil, salt and pepper, find
Yes.
my veggies,
Yes.
maybe I'll put some spices on things, but it's really simple.
Yes.
Sometimes following a recipe is not always necessary.
I
One
th
of the
I
things I work with women is learning just how to construct a plate, like how to compose it yourself without
Yeah.
even having to think about it. Because sometimes the act of following a recipe
I agree.
too mentally
Totally.
involved for a lot
Yeah,
of
it takes
women.
too long.
Takes too long, and they've got to keep looking back. What do I do next? Oh no, I
Yeah.
forgot that step. Whereas it's not that complicated. It's simple.
Yeah, I actually went through this period in my life, and I occasionally go back to it, where I learned, like, base flavors. So, like, I went through a period of cooking a lot of Mexican food,
Yeah,
and so now I can just create a Mexican flavor base because I
exactly.
know it's the cumin, it's the paprika, it's
Paprika.
the oregano, it's
Yeah.
and it's not it's actually not a lot of garlic and onion unless you char them, and, like, I know how to kind of just create bases.
And that's
Um,
the thing that you've just learned
yes.
how to.
Or like
I
lemon
just
juice, garlic, and parsley.
Yeah,
That's kind of Mediterranean sorta,
yeah,
or Italian. So, like, once you get those kind of flavor bases and you've got those just in your repertoire, you can adapt them. You can use them in any way.
yeah, absolutely. And some of my tools in the kitchen make
Yeah.
life really easy as well. So I
Yes.
have been a recent convert to the air fryer,
Oh, yeah,
which
I
I
haven't done that yet.
absolutely love. I
Really?
wasn't sure if I'd be into it, but it's just so easy.
Yeah,
It,
it's
you
back
know,
on my
I can
radar.
I can I can bake, perfectly cook cauliflower florets in the air fryer in 20 minutes, which would take me over an hour in my oven.
Good.
Yeah, it's
Love
really
a
good,
cauliflower
and it's
bake. Oh my
delicious,
gosh.
or sweet potato fries I can make,
Oh,
10
I'm so
minutes.
in.
It's
Okay, I'm getting one.
yeah, yes, and
I
then
actually
I
had one
have
and
a
gave it
thermo.
away, and now I want
Oh,
it back now.
yes, they are so good. I barely use my other oven unless I'm doing a bigger kind of tray bake style meal, or I still use it if I'm making cakes and things. And then I use my Thermomix for a lot as well. And actually I do use the Thermomix recipes a fair bit, and
Yes.
I'll just tweak them. I'll just add in certain things, take out certain things, and sort of adapt it to suit this lifestyle, which is also another part of what I work with women to
Mm,
do, is how to convert your own recipes, how to,
yeah.
still eat the food that you love, but, align it with this eating philosophy.
Yeah, I've got several recipes that are really high nutrient density kind of recipes
Mhm.
inside my membership for a very similar reason. Just like, how can you do a big batch of something that's going to give you so much energy,
Yeah.
especially if you're depleted, because I work often with women who are depleted. And
Yeah.
so it's really, I just think there's so much gold. I think what you're doing is amazing, and we need more of it. Women need to feel like that joy of eating beautiful food and sharing beautiful food with families is accessible and
And that
affordable
they're
and.
and that they're worthy of it. I think that's
Yes.
a big part of it, is just teaching women that they're worthy of that time, and they're worthy of that nourishment, and that it's how important it is that they give back to themselves in that way.
I
And
love
that's
that.
what I was talking to you earlier, before the show, about prioritizing oneself. and creating the meal around what you want and making adaptations for your family and not the other way around.
Yes.
And that you're worthy of that. If
Yes.
you're the one preparing the meal, you're worthy of enjoying and eating what you want.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a
Yeah.
backward feedback loop, isn't it? You might not feel worthy when you start out, but the more you
Mhm.
do it, the more you exercise that muscle, the more you strengthen it, and the better it gets. It kind of
Yeah.
exponentially amplifies. You might not start with the self-worth. It might come with the process,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it comes with the mental clarity and yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all feeds back into itself. Oh, feeds back into itself. See what I did there?
Very funny. Very funny.
So thank you for coming on the Unboxable podcast. We love having
Oh.
beautiful guests like yourself. How can people find you, Nadia?
So my website is nadiarihani.com, which we'll put in the show notes.
There we-
And you can find me on Instagram with Nadia Perfecting Peri.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my gosh, we might have to do a part 2 where we talk more about perimenopause and menopause as well.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sounds great.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you
See
so much for having
you.
me. Bye.
This has been a production made with love, and I will continue to offer the best possible resources to assist you in staying connected and reconnecting, if you've lost connection, to your deeper purpose and your deeper meaning, so that you can go out and make the big change that I know that you are called to do. If you know another woman who might enjoy this, please share it with her. Leave a review, get in touch with me on socials or inside the Soul Mama community through the website in the show notes. I really love connecting with women on this journey. It's seriously what I am here to do. And I absolutely love bringing these conversations to you. So anything you can do to help me spread the word really helps it reach more women who need this special magic. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.